Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
I've created Aussie Lawn Stars to give you professional help free. And you'll also find Lawn Care Skull Sessions and the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast doing the same thing. On Facebook, you can look up the Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia group or the Australian Professional Contractors group. And if you want help that is personalised and takes you a little bit further, then you should look up Prez Madley. He offers personal coaching, business coaching, and corporate coaching. Email him on thinktankcoaching@outlook.com. You could also book an appointment with my accountants, Prosper Financial, on 0249 77 3363 if you need help getting your business and bookkeeping in order. I get people asking all the time if battery is up to the task for everyday commercial use, and there are still plenty of people who argue that battery is simply not a good solution for contractors. So let's cover a couple of these topics. 1. Not every lawn and garden business will get a benefit from using battery tools. You should ask the questions first about what sort of tasks they will be required to do, and I'm happy to answer some of these questions about what tasks are good for battery tools and which tasks should be left for petrol tools. 2. What benefits do you want from battery tools? Some businesses will experience a greater return on investment with battery tools. This can be measured financially, but sometimes needs to be measured in reduced risks and problems too. Work health safety benefits are measurable when talking about no exhaust burns, reduced noise, and the noise being further away from the operator's ears. Vibrations in your dominant and non-dominant arm will most likely be less with battery tools, but a change in the balance of tools or poorly maintained tools can result in more vibrations to your forward-reaching arm, regardless of if it's battery or petrol power. So, some easy tools to see the benefit with battery are hedge trimmers and handheld blowers, because the list of pros and cons seriously favour the battery tool over petrol. But whippersnippers and mowers often have the pendulum where the pros disappear as the runtime requirements increase or the load increases due to long grass. If you run one battery platform, you might find you initially needed 2 or 3 batteries, and now with a whippersnipper and a mower, you require 10 or even 20 batteries to get through a whole day. This can be the line in the sand for many businesses, but one way to avoid this is to charge on the go, or bring your charger to the properties where you spend long periods of time. I've been using a number of Ego tools now, and Ego is a dedicated battery power brand. When I need commercial battery solutions, Ego has a tool and battery and charging options that allow me to focus on getting the work done, and I don't have to worry about my day. 2 staff and 6 batteries keep me out of trouble and busy working. Welcome to the dungeon.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Darren Morris from BattMow in Melbourne.
Yeah, Mornington Peninsula.
Yeah. Okay, so Mornington Peninsula means you work with the likes of Will Harford. You probably know.
Oh, dear. Oh. I'm sorry that you know him as well.
Look, he's full of energy. That's
he
for
sure
sure.
Is. He's a good bloke. He knows his stuff too. So
he does. I interviewed him a while ago, and yeah, he certainly doesn't mind telling me what he knows too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. There's nothing he doesn't.
Yep. He's a bit of a Husqvarna boy too, so I guess you can't hold that against him. It's a good choice.
Yeah, he's got the Husqvarna going there, so we work together a little bit with the robotics and also the battery equipment. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, so you're a non-franchised dealer for Husqvarna, right?
Yeah, so I came on a couple of years ago really just to install the auto mowers for all the different stores, and then loved the product so much that decided to start selling as well.
Yeah, okay.
But I've just signed up as a pro robotics dealer as well, which is a 6-month trial in Australia. So there's only a couple of us throughout Australia that are doing it.
We want to really give people a feel for who you are, where you've come from, and what your business looks like overall. So judging by your hair colour, beard, probably a slightly receding hairline, you're probably similar age to me. I'm in my mid-40s.
Yes, there you go. I was going to say early 20s, but yeah. Yeah, definitely mid-40s.
I was talking to a young guy, Brandon Martin, from the Southern Highlands in New South Wales, and he's 24. And I said to him, I said, I'm only a couple of years older than you. He just cracked up laughing.
When you're as old as us, we need to start trying to feel young.
That's right. Yeah, so mid-40s, you've probably had a few career changes, or at least one, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Goes way back, I guess. I did an apprenticeship out on the golf course down on the peninsula, and I did my turf management there for 5 years.
So you've been in the industry for most of your life then?
Yes. Yeah, in and out of it, but mostly in it.
Well, full respect there. You've got a lot more time in the industry than I do.
It's good and bad, but no, I wouldn't have it any other way at the moment. I'm really excited with where we're going. But I've got a landscaping business as well that I've had for 19 years. And that also had a maintenance division in it at one point for about 10 years. So been there and done quite a lot. But this is the new venture.
Yeah, okay. You've got the landscaping business still operating in the background.
Yes.
Doing its thing. I'm guessing you've got somebody managing that for you.
Yeah, me.
Oh, okay, yep. So that'll keep you busy if you're doing that as well as the battery mowers, the robotic mowers, everything that you're doing.
Yeah, so it's been reduced heavily. I used to have about 15, 20 staff with us in the landscape. Now there's only 3 of us. Because this is what I'm trying to put my attention to. But the landscaping brings the money in, and the robotics is the enjoyment side of it.
You'd get on well with Dirk Striefkirk. I don't know if you haven't had the chance, go and listen to the episode I did with Dirk. He's in Sydney selling robotic mowers. He was running a landscaping, construction and maintenance business. Now he does predominantly maintenance and robotic mowers.
Yes. Yep. I know Dirk, or I know of him anyway.
Yeah. It sounds like you've done very similar things in business, so that's awesome.
It's landscaping gets a bit hard on the body, and the robotics is a little bit easier on the body, so it's working a little bit smarter in the older years. Yeah.
I think Dirk's done slightly different to you because he was full into landscape construction, and he's pretty much dropped that and does the maintenance. I think he's got 2 or 3 staff doing maintenance instead of construction.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where we're starting to think of going now as well. I guess the quality of staff and their experience of what they can do. So in the maintenance side of things, I know I can get them up and going and teach them a lot quickly and be confident with me not having to be on site all the time. With the landscaping, I'm finding I still have to be on site a lot. So pushing them a bit more over to the maintenance side to make it a little bit easier for me to spend the time on this business.
Fair enough. Yeah. So how long is it that you've been in the in BattMow? Did you create that business name specifically to do auto mowers?
Yes. Yeah. So 2.5 years. 2.5, almost 3 years since we started helping Husqvarna out in the installs, and then obviously naming BattMow instead of the old landscaping business to keep it separate. Yeah. And selling products, probably not that far behind. I think within 6 months I knew almost too much about the product, and decided I wanted to be full on into it.
So you've been into that almost about the same amount of time as I've been doing the podcast.
Okay.
I started the podcast August when I had knee surgery, and when I was off work recovering from knee surgery, I started doing my first interviews.
Okay. There you go. And just chasing different lines in the lawn business.
Yeah, so I still run a lawn care and gardening maintenance business, and I do the podcast as well as doing that. And one of my early interviews was with Verdurous Gardens and Husqvarna. So I had Phil from Husqvarna, Rob from Verdurous, and myself going back 2 years ago, probably 2 years and a few weeks ago.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think Verdurous came on board similar time to me with the robotics with Husqvarna.
Yeah.
So I think I was April of that year, which was probably about them as well.
Yeah. So back then, I had talked to Husqvarna and talked to Ambrosio and a few different companies, and I was like, well, robotic mowers would be interesting if they're applicable in landscape maintenance, gardening, lawn mowing businesses. And that was where Husqvarna said, hey, yeah, have a look at what Verdus are doing.
Yeah.
And then I went and interviewed a guy up in Mackay that's done something similar with Mobot, which obviously there's a bit stark contrast between the Mobot and the Husqvarna products. But, for the purposes of what Richard Hogan's doing, the Mobot meets his needs quite well.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done quite a bit of research in the different brands and that, and with us opening a store, being open to possibly one or two other products out there.
Yeah.
Our biggest thing is making sure that we're going to be selling something that we don't have to be repairing every 2 seconds, or giving our customer a bad experience, because that's, I think, the biggest thing with robotics, that people are already skeptical about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So try and make sure they're giving the best opportunity right from the start.
That's right. And I've often said to other people, if you're starting at the base end, you could go and buy a Mobot and it's probably sub $1,000, or it might be just over $1,000. You can actually buy a Gardena, which is made by Husqvarna, or you can now buy a Husqvarna that is in the same price range.
Yes. Yeah, and most definitely with their little Aspire.
Yeah. And there are a few other brands now that are out there. In the last couple of years, there's been a whole host of different brands come on board, hasn't there?
Yeah. So we're currently looking at a few other ones at the moment and testing a few. We've tested a few over the time and liked and disliked, but not here to bag or bag others out. But yeah, there's definitely a lot out there now, and there's a lot to come, and there's a lot of change in it so quickly as well. So.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't mind talking about a few different brands, not to bag them out, but certainly what I have suggested to quite a few people is, if you do look at the options, Husqvarna is one of those brands which has been in the business the longest. So if you're comparing it to other brands, keep that in mind. If you do pay a little bit more for a Husqvarna, it might be worth it. But, when you're talking about Ambrosio versus Husqvarna, they both have a similar history in the business. They have some unique products that either brand might do better or worse in. And then now that you've got a bunch of brands that are working with RTK GPS or vision cameras, various different things, I've had a bit of a play with the Segway.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm quite fond of the Segway, but certainly different brands have their unique advantages or disadvantages.
Yeah. And the big advantage that we're finding with Husqvarna at the moment over a lot of the products is the tech support.
Yeah.
And having people on board in Australia compared to overseas, the time it can take to get repairs done or get the tech support needed when and if something does go wrong.
Yeah.
Husqvarna are always there. They've got people throughout Australia. You don't just have to wait, for interstate now. They've got people in Victoria on board, and they take your calls pretty much any time of day and that as well.
Yeah.
A few others that we've looked at in the newcomers, they're still overseas. Tech support, chasing parts and things like that is a big issue. And obviously, once you've got a mower going around, once it stops, a lot of these people don't have mowers anymore. So you don't have the time to sit there and say, I'll get back to you in 4 weeks with that part, and their lawn's 10 foot high.
Yeah, I've certainly noticed that, because Husqvarna's head office is literally 5 minutes away from where I'm spending most of my time, on the Central Coast. So, yeah, that's certainly handy to have them close by. And obviously, like you're saying, in Victoria, you've got good support from Husqvarna as well. Ambrosio, I really like their products, but if I have an issue with Ambrosio, I'm talking to a person in Perth.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of distance there, but there's still reasonable support. I know Segway's now supported by PLP in Australia, so that for people in the industry to understand that PLP is one of the big players in the lawn care industry, that's good to know that Segway at least has that local support.
Yeah. So we're speaking with them at the moment and got another meeting with them later this week with the Segway as an option. And we've also looked at the vacuum cleaner, EcoBot, EcoVac. So they've been pushing, but very different layouts and how it works around the garden. Just doesn't suit what I think should be going out and about, considering you're going to battery, but then they're putting D-sized batteries in these little tubes put around the garden beds. So they've got a little bit more work to do there, but Segway seem to have a pretty good product, and look forward to speaking to them a little bit more. And we have a test unit out at the moment on the new Crest robotic mower. So that's out on our nature strip at the moment, has been for the last couple of weeks. And liking most of the things with that one as well. So it's good to see that there's other things coming out.
Now, Crest is interesting because their RTK system, do they actually call it RTK?
Yes.
Yeah, their RTK system requires that a dealer, and I presume you would become a dealer if you're working with them, you have to set up their base RTK, which then goes back through the cellular network, I think it is, so that it connects with the robots within a radius. Yeah,
so their receiver sits on our shop, and that gives a 30 kilometre radius.
Oh, yeah.
Where with the Husqvarna in the wireless units, the receiver sits on the customer's roof, and looks after a 500 metre radius.
And I believe with some of the Husqvarna units, you can actually run several receivers to cover complicated yards.
Yeah, most definitely. So you can spread them through acreage properties and stuff like that. With the new Ciora commercial unit, that's doing up to 48,000 square metres. Then obviously when it goes to golf courses and open parklands, ovals and that, so then you can then have multiple of receivers spread throughout wherever that point is to be able to allow those mowers to be able to take an extra distance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think there's value in both of those systems. One where you've got the dealer that has the receiver set up for the area, and the other one where you've got the individual receivers for each customer. Yeah,
most definitely. And that's the biggest thing that we're trying to push is that we're trying to find an answer for all properties. And sometimes Husqvarna is not the right product, and sometimes Crest or Segway. It's just trying to find a few different offerings that offer a good quality and can be covered on all properties.
Yeah, and that's the same thing I've found is that Husqvarna is one of the best brands that you can find, but there are solutions outside of Husqvarna sometimes that make more sense depending on the property and the customer.
Yeah, most definitely. The biggest hurdle we've come up with, I guess, with the Husqvarna EPOS or wireless unit is that there are some people that don't want to have that receiver on their roof. They're happy to have a TV antenna and stuff like that, but this tiny little receiver, they just say they don't want it on their roof. So there are a few people like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm always stumped when people tell me that, but
I haven't come across that myself. I've been using a Segway for the last few months, and the receiver for the Segway sits on a 1 metre high pole, and then you can buy I think it's a 20 metre extension for the receiver, so you can mount it to a roof. And where I've done several demos, like done 3 to 4 week demos on that machine in various different properties, and suggested to the person that owns the property, I said, we'll put the receiver beside the base station. It's 1 metre high. It sits right beside the base station and connects straight in. If we have trouble, we could put it up at roof height. And everybody's like, oh, that'd be, I'd be happy to pay for it to be put up at roof height.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we had some pre-orders of the EPOS before it came out with customers that already have the wired units of the Husqvarna. And when we rocked up with our antenna guy to get it done, he's like, oh, no, I don't want that on my roof. And even though he's on about 5 acres and, Yeah,
Yeah.
that's had a couple of people like that. It's not hugely common, but once it gets up on the roof, they want to know exactly where it's going to go and how it's going to sit. They want to see it just standing there before we put it in.
I guess for a customer, they probably care about the aesthetics of it. But outside of that, I doubt they would care about the potential for somebody to be spying on them or anything silly like that.
I don't think so. I haven't had that one yet, but you never know, especially in researching some of the other country brands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
People are certainly questioning, I guess it's just like the cameras and stuff like that, where a lot of cameras have been taken off the market in government agencies because of that thought. So,
well, some of the robots brag about using cameras to work out where they're going. So they have an AI that uses the camera to determine where the edge of the property is, what direction they're mowing, all those sorts of things, and for security.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm like, if that's made in China, for instance, or North Korea, I'd be concerned too.
Well, I think that's something that we'll certainly be seeing more of as well with these robotic mowers coming out, because most of the new brands are coming from there. So,
yeah.
And as they bring more and more cameras, I think it'll be questioned more and more.
And, if the camera is purely used to detect objects on the lawn to avoid collision with a ball or a dog or a trampoline, then makes good sense. But if it's used for security, that would implement the internet having access to that camera and all sorts of things.
Yeah, most definitely. It's it'd be interesting to get feedback, and look, we haven't tried any of those ones as yet, but certainly looking forward to keeping updated and see what they actually do and at what times those cameras actually turn on.
Yeah, well, I think Luba is one of those brands which is really interesting in that regard, and they've had an interesting rollout in Australia. So I'm watching them very cautiously, but they seem to be selling really well from what I hear.
Yeah, they're pumping a lot of money into their advertising, and again, another company that we've had a good chat with in regards to the product and being a possible on-seller. And just the unfortunate side of tech support, and when you've got the distributor agreeing that that's a big issue, it makes it very hard to even buy off him, which is a bit of a shame because he seems like a decent guy. But there's a lot to be learnt, I think, before they can be distributed properly. Yeah. But there's a lot of good feedback on them.
Yeah, there certainly is. I think the four-wheel drive system and the RTK system they're using seem to work really well.
Yeah. They've also brought out their newest one, I think it's got a catcher on it as well to try and catch up all your leaves and all that sort of stuff. So that'll be the first of those out at the moment.
That looks very interesting, and be interesting to see some tests of that and how it performs. I believe that one's not actually going to hit Australia real quick because it's still in development at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I've just seen a lot of advertising for it, but yeah, you'd have to be out there on some properties out there every 5 minutes to go and empty the catcher.
Yep. But there is another brand, EcoFlow, also introduced one with a catcher on it, and I'm not 100% sure that you can buy the EcoFlow in Australia, but it seems to be available. And the catcher on that is more about picking up leaves and debris rather than catching the grass clippings.
I thought that was the same with the Luba as well, isn't it?
I don't know with the Luba.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Be interesting
there's plenty of things that are meant to be coming out with them, and obviously with the larger units with ball picking up for golf driving ranges, and there is rumours of an actual edger to come out. I'm still not too sure how an edge is going to come out on it to make it actually safe for anyone's hands or feet or anything like that. But
have you ever watched Robot Wars?
Yes, how cool is that? That is awesome, that show.
I can just imagine a robotic lawnmower with an edger swinging blades around in the air and going, all right, keep out of my way. If another robot comes near me, it's sliced in half.
Yeah. What was that dog doing there before? The tail was in the wrong spot. So,
it'd leave the dog alone. It'd get the cat, though.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting space, isn't it, with all the new technology that's coming in with the smaller companies?
Yeah, there's even though I've only been involved for 2.5 years, the changes from when I first got involved to now, it's unbelievable how much more Australia's getting into it.
Yeah.
Overseas, they've been around for a lot longer and a bit more second nature. But the changes over here over the last probably even 6 to 12 months has been amazing.
Yeah, so one of the things you hear about robotic mowers overseas is in Europe, they do really well because a lot of residential properties there don't have a perimeter fence. So
Yep.
that's really easy for a robotic mower to navigate around a residential property in Europe, whereas the US and Australia seem to be more of a challenge in that regard.
Yeah, and I guess that's where the new Husqvarna Nera will certainly help out with that, because you can zone it a little bit better than the original wired units, and you've got those options to go wired or wireless.
Yeah.
And then they can track their way down side pathways and that, but definitely still having side gate issues and things like that is something that, we generally install a charger at the front yard and a charger at the back, and a lot of customers start off with just picking up that one mower and taking it out to the front yard when they're there because they're worried about theft, and then about 2 months later it's just out there. They don't care when it's mowing because they realise that it's not that bad.
And it's got tracking on it, so it's a lot of security features.
Yeah, and you get a notification on your phone as soon as something happens to it. You can see it on the map of where it is. And then people get sick of picking up the lawnmower and picking it up from the front to the rear yard, and all of a sudden they've got a new unit that just sits out the front full time and one unit sitting out the backyard full time. So it'll still always be a challenge, I think, with our front and rear yards. There are some doors, I believe in America, but they've had a few hassles with them at the moment that automatically open. It's kind of like a doggy door for the Husqvarna auto mowers, and so it opens up when the mower gets close to it, so you can still have that safety of the dog or whatever not coming through.
Yep.
But we've been chasing Husqvarna Australia to what's happening with that, and we're still chasing Husqvarna Australia to find out when that's happening.
Yeah, it seems like it's one of those things which is going to be prone to having problems.
Yeah, but the only way that we can keep working with them is get them over here and let's try them out in our conditions, rather than worried about what's happening over there. Get a few demos out here so we can sort of play around with them and see what we can and can't do with them.
So what I've seen in Australia so far, there's been a few things come up to have a good solution to that. One of them is to just have two smaller robotic mowers. So one does the backyard, one does the front yard.
Yeah.
And they're completely separate, and that way you avoid having that need to go through a fence altogether. And the other one is particularly with, like you're saying, with the Nera or any of the other machines that have RTK GPS, is that the customer will elect to manually open their side gate and leave it open when the robot's programmed to go through and do the front yard. And so they might say, okay, we're just going to get it to go through 2 days a week, and in the afternoon when we're home, go and open the gate up, let it do its thing, close the gate before we go to bed. No
exactly.
problem.
Yeah, and that's where the Nero will work really well with that.
Yeah.
And just because it can track down those pathways, you don't have to worry about lifting it up if that's a concern for different customers on the weight, even though they are 15 to 20 kilos. They're certainly not heavy.
Yeah.
But there's certainly options.
I've had a fairly lengthy chat with Andrew Murison from Husqvarna about the Nera, so I'm up to speed with that. But I'm going to get him in for another interview sometime soon. We're going to talk to Husqvarna directly pretty soon.
Excellent.
So we'll get a really good technical interview there.
Yeah. No, Andrew would be a good person to chat with, and we're up there. Middle of February, I'm up there at their centre doing some extra training and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to getting. I've never been to the head office, so looking forward to being up there and getting a bit more info, and certainly the tech training, tech support, and learning a little bit more about the mowers there.
Sounds great. So, in your business over the last couple of years, have you targeted residential installs mostly, or are you doing some commercial installs? Is it a bit of a mix, or more leaning one way or the other?
Yeah, so I guess we came on really more just in the residential side of things at the start, and 99% of our installs were for residential. Now we're taking on the Pro Robotics dealer that is based more towards the commercial, so getting into cancels and all that sort of stuff. So
Okay.
the residential's great.
Yep.
Customers really love them. And they've saved their money, ready to do it. The commercial side of things is a little bit slower. It's a process, obviously, with the money that they're turning over, the equipment they've already got, and waiting for that. So it's definitely a bit more of a process, but it can be really enjoyable to get out and show, especially like golf courses and stuff like that, the change in life and these people that are struggling to get staff on board of ride-on mowers and stuff like that. So I really enjoy that, especially that I've got the golf course background. It's good to go back onto the courses and show them a few changes that have happened in the time.
Yeah, so the Ciora is very much targeted at sports grounds, isn't it? Where it's got a fairly well manicured lawn to look after.
Most definitely, yeah. So a smaller rate of incline, so it only sits about 15 degrees. So it is mainly for the flatter spaces. So you're talking, ovals, open parklands, golf courses. Yeah. Got a few out there doing, the roughs around fairways, but they can also be doing fairways as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so that Ciora is a really interesting machine in that regard, and certainly it's probably the smallest area it would take on around 5 acres.
Well, it does up to 48,000 square metres, so that's about 18 acres.
So that's its higher limit, and if you want it to do a mow every day or 2 mows a day on a high-end sports field, then it's going to do less area.
Yeah, then it drops back down again a little bit, but it's not a huge amount of difference in that. I think it goes down to around 30, and I could be wrong there because I'm only just getting right back into it now as well. I've just had two units delivered.
Yeah. I heard around 25,000 square metres or somewhere around there, I think, from the top of my head.
Yeah, it's 25, 30,000. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, which is still that 25,000 is around 5 acres, so it's a pretty decent size.
Yep.
Certainly very capable machine.
Yeah, it's got the 3 blades, the 3 cutting discs rather than the single cutting disc that Husqvarna are generally known for in their smaller robotics. Sits in around 75 kilos. But the great thing with those is that they're coming with 5-year warranty and maintenance plans as well. So when these places are buying them, they're buying a full package, so they don't have to worry about the maintenance and that on them, which I guess to them is a big unknown, being such a new product, where if they don't have to worry about that as well, it certainly works to their advantage.
Yeah. So the difference between residential and commercial, if you're talking purely robotic sales, you're looking at customers who are already over the line versus customers which you need to get over the line. But if you're talking a lawn care maintenance business like myself, I've got a large commercial site and I quoted the commercial site to do the maintenance, and then afterwards I've said, hey, can I install robotic mowers to do some of the maintenance for me? And so I've now got 4 robotic mowers doing a decent portion of the lawn maintenance, and then I'm responsible for doing the rest of it with the ride-on mower, doing all the edging and all the gardening and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So in a situation like that where a maintenance contractor has a job already, it's a prime position for them to consider utilising robotic mowers in a commercial setting because it reduces the labour. And for me, it's probably doing about a third of the mowing time that I would have been done by hand or by ride-on mower.
Yep.
And I'm going to implement more robotic mowers there as well, which will just reduce that mowing time again.
And I think you're a great person to speak to in regards to that, because there are a few companies down here that we've been in contact with and have started the same sort of thing. And
yeah,
the quality of the grass that you're finding in the areas that you've got them cutting all the time compared to the ones when you're turning up, are you finding a bit of a difference in the quality there?
Yes, definitely. So the quality of grass improves and it keeps on improving. I've noticed areas which otherwise were very sparse or had a lot of weeds coming through, the grass tends to become more like a carpet, nice thick layer. And this is without even adding fertilizer. This is just simply the fact that it's getting cut daily.
Yeah, most definitely. When we had the big unit out at a turf farm down here on demo, the patches that were there the day that we installed compared to the patches a week later, he couldn't believe how much faster those patches were filling in the growth. And it was a Kikuyu turf space, but the quality of that space in 1 week of mowing was amazingly different. And the time that you're saving there can be spent better in other places as well. So there's lots of places down here that require a lot of garden maintenance as well, but they're getting their maintenance guys are turning up and spending half the day pushing a mower around or getting on the ride-on, and then they're stuck with the gardens being left behind. So we're getting a few more of those coming in and go, well, if I've got the robot doing it, then they can spend more quality time where we really need it.
Yeah. What I've found, the first robot I installed, I was told, okay, this will improve the quality of the grass. And initially I didn't really see it. And then I went away for a week in January this year and I switched all of the robots off for 1 week.
Oh, wow.
And coming back, the difference was amazing, just having them switched off for a week and then trying to get them to go again. And, okay, you've got to go and do a bit of work with the ride-on mower to get the grass to the level where the robot can manage it. But the other interesting one there is the first one that I installed looks after 3 separate areas. So it's got paths, concrete paths that intersect and separate it into 3 separate areas. And initially it was pavers. So I put the wire underneath the pavers to cross over the path, and then recently they ripped up the pavers and put concrete path in there, and I've run the wire through the concrete so that it goes across.
Yep.
And from the time when it first started to when they ripped the path out and put the concrete path in there, it's made so much difference to the lawn that I've been approached by management saying, hey, when's that robot going to be back up and running? Because I'm still mowing it with the ride-on mower. I'm making sure it looks tidy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the robot kept it looking spectacular all the time. And, yeah, it just made the grass look like carpet instead of not as tidy.
It looks beautiful after you've cut it on the ride-on for the day. And the way that, the way grass is growing down here in Melbourne at the moment, it's like early spring down here. The people can't keep up with the lawn growth. So you'd have to be there once a week at the moment to try and keep most of the customers down here happy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even though it can look beautiful with the ride-on, because this area they're used to seeing it kept tidy all the time, and then the ride-on comes in once or twice a week to do it, it's like, no, it just doesn't look right.
Yeah.
It's that stark a contrast.
No, they are. I was astonished when I first started looking into them, just how they do it. And my wife has no interest in grass, or never used to anyway.
Yeah.
Until we got a robotic mower in our place, and she was starting to take photos and putting them on Facebook, and I'm like, you don't care about what the grass looks like, but she does now. So
yeah. So I found that quite interesting in commercial sense. In the initial thoughts are, well, that's a problem, and it's a problem for all sorts of reasons. Work health, safety, staff potentially stealing a robot, all these various issues they might raise. And then once it's installed, it's like, hey, don't take that away.
Yeah. And I think that most people that come to us, their biggest fear is theft. They think that someone's just going to pick it up and take it. And the amount of theft that I know of through Husqvarna in the couple of years that I've been, it's next to zero for the amount of auto mowers or robotic mowers that are going around. People are more interested and intrigued by what they are than anything. And they're out in public parks in Melbourne and in Sydney and they're doing their thing, and they're in public spaces with people walking around watching them, and they're still not having the theft problem. So it's definitely something that I think just takes a little bit of time for people to understand that people aren't there to steal them. I think the biggest concern I've had with them would be more that you get some teenagers just go and jump up and down or something like that. And we had that once in one of our wineries that we have it on. But overall, when you talk about percentages, if someone wants to damage something, they're going to damage it no matter what.
Yeah, well, I've heard one or two brands where the mower that doesn't have a wire in the ground relies on the accurate GPS. One or two of them have wandered out of their area.
Yeah.
Different brands. But I actually was told, I think it was just last week, about I'm pretty sure it was a Husqvarna in a public area that was stolen.
Yeah, I know there was one in Sydney in a parkland up there, and it was picked up about 300 metres down the road.
Yeah, well, this one wasn't in Sydney, but it was stolen and it didn't get very far. I think once they got it out of its actual area, the alarm annoyed them so much that they dumped it very close by, so not far away at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, nothing wrong with it, I believe. Just there you go. But yeah, that concern that somebody might steal it and then realise that it's annoying with the alarm going off, or that they can't use it because it's locked them out, the potential for them to damage it or throw it in the lake is there.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And they can be put on house insurance if you're talking residential side of things. House insurance and that can cover that sort of stuff, but in general, it hasn't really been an issue. So
yeah, that's it. So have any of your customers had one stolen you know of?
No, none of ours have been stolen. We have them out on busy roads, on nature strips, going in and out of the properties and stuff like that, and haven't had any of the theft. As I say, we've had one damaged by a young group of kids that their parents were sitting at the restaurant and we're probably sitting there watching them do it at the same time. But apart from that, we haven't had any issues, which has been great.
That's great.
There's always going to be a story here and there. I'm sure it doesn't matter whether you've got a ride-on mower or a push mower or a robotic mower. There's always going to be those issues here and there. So,
yep. And I think the more of them that are out there, the more likely we will hear about the odd one here and there getting stolen or vandalised.
Most definitely.
But yeah, for the most part, they're pretty bulletproof against being stolen.
Well, Husqvarnas are. I mean, they're notifying you straight away when they're stopped. You can use a geofence on them as well, so they're completely shut down. They're near useless to anyone that does take them because they're always set up with a PIN code. Yep. They need to go get a new dock for it, or you go to a Husqvarna dealer and ask for it, and hopefully that Husqvarna dealer is doing the right thing and getting the serial number and stuff like that. It's already been notified to us throughout that there'd been a stolen unit. So if everything's done in the right manner, that really is useless to whoever takes it.
That's right. Yeah, and most of the Husqvarna models, not all of them, but most of them will have GPS tracking so you can actually see where it is.
Most definitely, yeah. Yeah, there's only 2 out that don't have that.
Yeah, so the large part of your business at the moment is doing that. But the BattMow business is predominantly doing robotic mower sales and installation.
Yeah. So we definitely sit in the office, wait for people to come to us. We do free on-site demos. So we do a lot of travelling. Longest has been about a 4-hour drive away from us. With that sort of stuff, we certainly go in a little bit differently. They already know what they're going to be coming up for when we do demo it. I'm pretty confident I'm very confident in the product. So I know when I get out there and actually demo it on their sites, they're 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, really, they're going to be taking the unit on and we're installing it that day as well. So getting the units out there. I think that a lot of people see them on Facebook and stuff like that these days, and they think that they're just sitting on a pretty picture and saying that they don't mow and stuff like that. So I think getting them out onto sites so people can actually see what they're doing on their own place has worked really well for us.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of skepticism that some people have towards them before they actually get the opportunity to see one in action or use it themselves.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, I challenge those people on a regular basis on Facebook and all that sort of stuff to let us come out and put one on their property and give it a go and see whether they still think the same about it after a day of it being on their site. Yeah,
Yep. So most people, if they agree for a demo, you're saying they're already over the line by the time they do the demo.
Yeah. We do, excuse me, the wired units, the residential ones, where we're generally on site for up to a couple of hours between setup, and we're only setting up in a very small area of their lawn. We don't want to mow their whole lawn for them, so they just tell us to come back in a couple of weeks. But we show them in a small area that they can actually see what it's doing. And generally, straight after the demo, we're pulling the cable that we just sat on top of the ground, we're pulling that up and installing it properly into the ground, and they've got to mow it up and going later that day.
Now, help me explain to my listeners, because a lot of people listening to this do landscape maintenance, lawn care maintenance, and they have in the back of their mind going, oh, maybe I should buy a couple of robotic mowers and just take them around to different properties. And it's like, well, some of them you can actually set them up so you can use them on more than one property. But the best way to utilize a robotic mower is when it is mowing 7 days a week on one place.
Most definitely, because they're made to maintain the grass at a certain height, not come in and try and chop it down. You're getting a lot cleaner finish. You're not having to worry about the grass clippings, and that's what a lot of people don't want to see is grass clippings and that over their lawn. Build up a thatch when it's sitting there. So they are definitely best to be on the one side. Or if you've got, I guess, a couple of houses side by side, that you could utilise a larger unit to work between a couple. But I guess it goes in the same line as when people want to have one in there, want to utilise one for the front and backyard, and they're picking it up every few days and going backwards and forwards. Yeah. They're not getting the full premium experience of the change in their lawn and that from being able to do that. And for customers that you are putting those units on full time, they've got their true experience, and they're going to want to keep you there a lot longer because they've seen the change in their turf as well.
Now, one of the things I've seen here, and having done a few demos for people, it stands out really obvious when you put a demo machine out there for 3 or 4 weeks rather than just for an hour or so. And that is that the machine is designed, like you say, to mow every day. And so if you have a robotic mower that mows the area it's capable of every day, and it cuts most of that area or all of that area every day, then it's doing a really good job. It always looks cut and it always looks great. If you push that machine to do more than it's really capable of, then it starts to show, and that might mean that it's, instead of cutting that area every day, it might be cutting it every other day. And for the most part, they should be able to manage cutting the grass every other day and still keeping it look great. But in the season we've had at the moment, even if it's one day in between, with a robotic mower, it starts to look like a patchwork quilt.
Most definitely.
And that's, I guess, what I'm trying to convey to the listener here is that if you're talking about cutting with a ride-on mower, an overgrown lawn might be if it goes past 2 weeks cutting, or in this season, if it goes past 1 week cutting, it starts to look a little bit untidy when you turn up to mow it again. With a robotic mower, if it is more than about 4 centimetres of growth, that is overgrown for a robotic mower, and it's really obvious when it's cutting that it's not been cut often enough.
And they generally slow down with the longer grass. They're going to slow down their mowing capabilities as well. So once it's chasing its tail, then you're going to see it a lot more. And that's when you get your summer grasses and that, they're going to get a lot spongier, and that's where you're going to have even more issues with it as well. So definitely want it to be mowing every day. Yeah. With line of what it's meant to be doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's probably where, unfortunately, a number of brands have been hurt by salesmen that oversell a mower. So if you take one of the Husqvarna, say the 450, it's supposed to be able to mow 5,000 square metres of lawn. But if you're trained well to sell that machine, you will look at various factors that determine what its maximum capacity is. Yeah. So 5,000 square metres is its maximum capacity. But if you have steep slopes to manage, or you have more than about 3 zones to manage, or you've got lots of objects within a zone that it has to navigate around, then that affects its maximum capacity. So a lot of mowers, Husqvarna, Ambrosio, and I've noticed this with the Segway I've been doing demos of, when you have a complicated area for it to manage, it reduces its capacity a lot. And the Segway is an example, a brilliant mower. So this is not having a go at Segway in any way. But because it's systematic mowing instead of random mowing, if it gets to a narrow passage, if it mows lengthways on that narrow passage, it does it really efficiently. But if it's changing its direction, because it'll change its direction by 30 degrees every day,
Yeah.
or every mow, when it changes its direction so it's not mowing lengthways, it'll use up its whole battery mowing a fraction of its capacity because it's turning around so much in that narrow passageway.
Yeah. And that's where, with the Husqvarna, you can really choose different areas like that and tell the mower that you only want it to mow in one particular direction in certain areas as well. So you can change it from your straight lines to your checker plate to your triangular, or just to your total random. So when you get into pathways like what you're saying, is at least you can set that location to just do your stripe cutting in the best way possible for the battery as well. So, and that's, I guess, advantages and disadvantages when you start looking at different mowers and what some can do and what some can't. And it goes back to what we were saying at the start, that it's about choosing a mower that suits the location in its best way.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I really like about the new Husqvarna Neras is that they still do a random mow pattern, even though they've got RTK GPS.
Yes.
And I'll argue black and blue with anybody with robotic mowers that the random mow pattern gives you a nicer finish than the systematic mowing where it's doing parallel lines. When it does a random cut, you don't get any lines through your lawn. It just looks nice and it looks perfect. Looks like a carpet rather than having lines all through it.
Yeah, and I think that'll always be an argument to and fro, because I think a lot of turfies like their stripes.
Yep.
And when they're using cylinder mowers and things like that, it's all about the stripes that they can see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that with the blade system and that running in all different directions, you're getting a much finer finish with the random cut than what you are with the stripe.
Yeah, so I really like that about the new Neras, and I think they're going to have the option of random or systematic at some stage, hopefully, by the sounds of it. But
yeah, it's certainly been talked about. We've questioned it ourselves because I think a lot of people are starting to see the wireless units come through and that they're all stripe cutting, and people think that that's the way to go. So I think that having that option with the EPOS, which is the first wireless that Husqvarna bought out, which is more of a professional range, it does up to 10,000 square meters. It gives you all options.
Yeah.
So you can still have the random cut on it. It does cut down how much it can mow as well. So
yes,
if you're using the EPOS with stripe cutting, you can do up to 10,000 square meters. If you keep it on random, then you're back down to about 5,000 square meters. So it does make a big difference.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So it is interesting. I like what Husqvarna is doing with those mowers. It'll be interesting to see as they roll out, because I think there hasn't been a lot of Neras sold yet.
No, it's still very new. We're actually looking for people to take on a demo model down here at the moment as well. After some, just some people with some influencers down the Mornington Peninsula and that. So
yeah, nice.
Just to try and get it out a little bit more. I'm still one of those people that is still in the old 430s and the old 450s.
Yeah.
Because I just really like the EPOS unit as the wireless unit at the moment. But the more I'm learning about the Nera, certainly the more excited I'm getting about it as well. So
yeah, nice. It will be
I
interesting.
still think it does need to have stripe cutting though. So we'll beg to differ there.
Look, I wouldn't complain if you could choose between it.
Yeah, I guess the EPOS came out where it was only random cut when it first came out.
Yeah.
And it was only sold as a 5,000 square metre. And then when they changed it to do the stripe, it went up to 10. And I think that's what they're trying to work out, how they can work nearer to still stick with up to 5,000 square metres, depending on the unit, even if it does go to stripe cutting. So I like both options for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So be interesting to watch this space with Husqvarna and see what happens with those ones in the future.
Most definitely. They certainly are pushing boundaries with them, and they're really trying to keep up with the changes and be leaders in many other ways as well.
Did you know that Wright has several different mowers to suit different size properties and different types of work? They range from the cute 32 all the way up to the big 72-inch standard that Kyle loves. Well, all the Wright mowers are built to be used commercially, and they have some great design features to make sure they save your business time and money season after season. Wright have carefully selected each engine to ensure it is very capable yet fuel efficient for the work it's designed to do every day, all day. One of the features that got me over the line with Wright is the AeroCore deck. It's one of the best deck designs in Australia currently, clearing huge amounts of grass when side discharging, while still great for catching, and it mulches well with a variety of blades. I'm about to throw a set of gator blades on and will be sharing my experience for sure.
We only specialise in robotics and battery-operated garden equipment. So all the Husqvarna battery equipment we have on board. And again, when we open a store, we'll have at least one other brand at this stage anyway.
Yeah,
unless Husqvarna really do something nice for us, because they don't want us to have anyone else.
Yeah, well, they do have their preferred dealers with that, don't they? So you could get on board there.
Yeah, most definitely. Look, I love all the Husqvarna range. I think that there's certainly some great products out there.
Yeah.
But again, I think it comes down to the same sort of discussion we have with the robotics, that not every Husqvarna product suits every property.
Yeah.
So giving customers the options to make sure that we can cover all customers rather than just a select 90%.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a pretty decent range of Husqvarna battery tools on board myself, so I'm very familiar with them and love them.
Yeah, and that's the feedback we get for the vast majority of the products, especially in the higher end range, in the professional range, which is great. And even the new Aspire range, when you go into the small home, residential stuff, for the little units and stuff like that, lightweight. They're actually come out with a really good product and really reasonably priced with the small homeowner stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's the Aspire range, isn't it?
Yeah, the Aspire range. So I just sold a Aspire hedge trimmer today, and with battery and charger, and you're looking at under $270 for the whole pack. It's a great thing for small homeowners, and that for sure.
Yeah, it's really good value.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about not all of their tools suit everybody. I've started with Husqvarna battery tools back at the end of 2018, early 2019. I first decided to implement battery tools in my business, and I tested a couple of Stihl products, and then I tested the Husqvarna products, and I concluded that Husqvarna was the way I wanted to go at that point in time. But their whippersnipper, that's now the 520. Back then, that wasn't the 520. I love it, but a lot of people report it as being underpowered. And it is underpowered if you're doing any sort of overgrown or really thick grass with it. But for a maintenance business, it's awesome. And you get a 2-hour battery runtime if you're using the BLI 300 battery. So for me, I've looked at that and gone, you know what, that has been one of the staples of my business for 5 years.
Have you got the 3 Series Combi?
Yeah, I've got the 325, and I've also done a bit with Ego, and their new STX 4500's a powerhouse. So if I need a powerful battery whippersnipper, the Ego kills it. And I believe the new Husky, the 5 Series, the 5 Series whippersnipper, the new one that's out, is going to be really good too. Is it a 525 or a 535?
535, I think, actually. That's meant to be really, really good.
Yeah.
I used a Ego the other day, and I was actually keen to look into Ego as another brand for our store. And when I used this Ego whippersnipper, I thought, geez, you better give the Husqvarna a go after that. So I was really disappointed with the power that came out of that. But mind you, that was one that's a couple of years old as well. So I do want to try and get onto the other stuff, because I guess Ego, Greenworks and all that are the new and big things. But
Yeah.
I think most people are either Husqvarna or Stihl people, and I think that the Husqvarna products, battery products, over Stihl is far superior.
When I started with battery gear 5 years ago, definitely Husqvarna was far superior to the Stihl at the time. And now there's a few Stihl products that are starting to look competitive. But the Ego that I was referring to is one of their new commercial ones. So their new commercial whippersnipper is not quite, it's certainly a whole lot better than the one you would have tried from a couple of years old.
Yeah. No, I look forward to updating on those. So hopefully very soon.
But yeah, I think most brands now, if they've got a commercial quality battery tool, it's starting to get competitive.
I think they have to as well now because there's a lot more talk about them now, and it's going to be the future whether we like it or not. So best to embrace it, and it's good that these companies are coming out and actually really challenging what a petrol whippersnipper or mower or anything can do. A lot of the batteries can do better these days.
Yeah, I think the thing that's held most battery handheld tools back has been the power versus runtime battle.
Yeah.
So if you take a handheld blower, the earliest handheld blower I used was a Makita, had a 12-minute runtime.
Yeah.
And now I'm talking handheld blowers that have got 45 minutes to 1 hour runtime and decent blowing power too. So that's certainly changed. And I think that's across the board. Most of the battery tools now have better run times, or have an option that has a good runtime and still decent power. But the other thing that goes hand in hand with that, because if you take a whippersnipper, for instance, and you've got a 45-minute runtime on a whippersnipper, if you start cutting something a little bit thicker, that 45-minute runtime becomes a 15-minute runtime.
You're saying that now or used to?
Yeah. Still true. So if you take a powerful whippersnipper and you're doing light work with it, you'll get the full runtime out of it. But if you're doing heavy work with it, it'll cut the runtime down quite a lot. So
yeah, I'm not finding that. Like, if you saw my property at the moment, it's like a bush because of the way it's growing and how much time I can get to look after it. But I haven't found the BLI 300s to drop that much in going flat out. In the long grass compared to definitely it cuts it down, but I would suggest that I'm going from about 45 minutes down to maybe 35 to 40 minutes. It's not been a huge amount of difference.
Yeah, well, I know my earliest whippersnipper from Husqvarna, I went from with the BLI 300, a top runtime of over 2 hours, down to I think less than 15 minutes when I was doing really thick overgrown work with it. So that's gone back 5 years now.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting now that makes that much more of an interesting discussion with most contractors is that there's a number of brands which offer a very rapid charge rate, so that if you do flatten your battery in half hour or 20 minutes, you can probably also recharge it in under 20 minutes.
Yeah, most definitely. Or go to 8 minutes and go to Crest.
Well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? And I'm very skeptical of Crest. I haven't talked to them directly yet, but I will also tell them I'm skeptical if I talk to them directly. It looks good on paper, but it'll be really interesting to see what they're like when people start implementing them. And I don't know anyone who's using them in their business yet, so it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in close dealings, obviously, with Crest because we are signed up as a dealer for them.
Yeah, nice.
It was always subject to us getting the robotic mower out because that's our main priority.
Of course.
And from what I understand at this stage, they haven't sold one of their big 8-minute chargers as yet in Australia. It looks like they're getting their first ones coming through, but it's going to suit a very small crew of people, a group of businesses, I think, because it's great in concept. You need to have, I would say, if you've got a crew of 3 or 4 working in the same space, I think it's ideal.
Yeah.
Because, it can be charging multiple batteries at the same time.
Yeah.
And even when you're using your big backpack blowers and stuff like that, by the time your backpack blower goes flat, your battery's already recharged again, so you're not having to have multiple with that. And look, blowers are, I think, for a long time are going to be one of those things that they just use so much power that you want to have either multiple batteries or something decent on that. Yep. But it does take up a lot of space as well. So if you're going out and cruise a 3 or 4 or 5, I guess you're going to have two vehicles anyway. But
yeah, look, I interviewed. This is going to be my 131st interview for this podcast.
Wow, congratulations.
In that, I've interviewed a lot of people that have multiple employees. And the guys that are out there running teams, they'll often run teams of 2 people because that seems to be their most efficient sweet spot between going from solo to having a lot of employees. But there's a couple of guys I've interviewed even in the last few weeks that will put 3, 5, 8 employees on one site for a whole day.
Yeah.
And that's where you could see that, what is it, $15,000, $16,000 worth of battery?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Sitting in a trailer or even in a shed, because some of us, like my contract, I've got tools on site all the time. So have it sitting in a shed, ready to go.
Well, I think if you're going to have it in a shed, you want to be on that site every day.
Yes.
But if you're on that site every day, then that'd be great.
Yeah, that's
because
what I'm
then
saying.
You're not taking up all the space. And I think that plugging in and out, if you've got it on the back of the ute, it becomes on some sites an OH&S issue because you've got to get up onto your tray to get it plugged in.
Yeah.
If it's set up in a van or a trailer where it's a lot lower and easier to get in and out of, I think that, I think that it's going to suit certain people and it's not going to suit others. And their products of all their other battery product and their batteries and that are a very good product. They're heavy, but they seem to be of really good quality, and they have regular charges that are quite fast charges like we were talking about before, where they're 20, 30 minutes for just a regular charger as well. So
I was just about to ask you about that. How bulky is the charger that they've got that can do that?
The 20 or 30 minutes?
Yeah.
No, look, it's certainly bigger than the Husqvarna fast charge, or the QC 500.
Yeah.
But it's not overly bulky. No, it's certainly easy to have put into your ute or into your trailer if you get a full setup in there.
So you could have it stored in the back of your ute and just whip it out and plug it into 240 volt power anywhere that you're working for a day at a time too.
Most definitely, and that's what I think a lot of commercial people can do. On most sites that you go onto, there's power available that you can be plugged in, charging something while you're looking after their space. So if you can charge in 20, 30 minutes, then why do you need the big tank?
Well, I hear of more and more people that will do that. They will have a commercial site or even residential properties they look after where they plug in and charge while they're on site. Most
definitely. I don't think there's too many people that are too worried about how much money you're spending by having a charger plugged in for half an hour to an hour on their site.
So I think that the only reason it's an issue for a lot of contractors is because they're on a residential property when the owners are not home, so they may not have access to power outside or something like that. And I understand that's a bit of a drama, but then you set your trailer or your vehicle up with a second battery system, solar charging and all the bits and pieces to make it worth doing that way too.
Yeah. And even when people are putting that sort of money into their trailers or utes and stuff like that, it's pretty quickly covered when you're talking about having petrol lying around and everything else. So the battery equipment certainly does show much better dividends and returns for you as well. Yeah,
well, I look at my numbers pretty closely, and I know my equipment fuel because I log in Zero the fuel that is for the vehicle because I get a road tax rebate on any fuel that's not used in the vehicle.
Yes.
So I can clearly see if I go back and look at the last 12 months how much fuel I've put into equipment versus how much fuel I've put into the vehicle, and my equipment fuel expense has dropped right off because of battery usage over the last 5 years, where I'm predominantly using battery in the handheld equipment. It's only the ride-on mowers that are really using the fuel.
Yeah, and to answer what people would then be saying is, how's your power bill going?
Yeah, and don't tell anyone, Darren, but I charge on site, so I don't pay for it.
There you go. So you're making more money again. Perfect.
But even if you're paying for it yourself, like to say worst case scenario, you set up a second battery system in your vehicle, and I would suggest you look at something that's got an inverter with about 3,000 watts so that it's very comfortable to charge even more than one battery at a time.
Yep.
But to do that, you're probably going to be, worst case scenario, about $3,000 or $4,000 in setup, I think. And I know other people have spent $10,000, but $3,000 or $4,000 would get you a pretty decent setup.
Most definitely. And when, like as you say, you know your fuel in and out. For most companies, they probably don't know that, and they just see $3,000 or $4,000 and think that it's crazy money. But then if they actually took a little bit more notice in the expense that they're putting in with petrol and oil and all that, very quickly, 3 or 4 grand's been and gone.
I've talked to numerous businesses which spend 3 or 4 grand every quarter in fuel.
Yep. Yeah, paid off straight away. Well, I think I find a lot of maintenance businesses down here don't take a lot of notice in that sort of stuff, and they just see the big figure. And I guess that's the same when it comes to robotic mowers, and that when you go to residential places and they go, "Oh, I can't afford to spend $3,000 on this," and I said, "Oh, so how much are you paying for your maintenance guy to come and you're telling him he needs more time in your garden?"
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I'm paying $150 a fortnight." So, okay, so it's been and gone, and you're still telling him he needs to be here more often, or she needs to be more often because your gardens are out of control. I said it doesn't take long for $3,000 or $4,000 to be made up.
Yeah, look, I talk to a lot of people about the quoting and the value side of their business, and I talk to residential guys about the cut value of a property. And you see people come up on LMCA. I don't know if you're a member of LMCA on Facebook, but asking the question about what's their minimum cut or how much to charge for residential lawns, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I jump in and I say, look at it as an annual amount. So if it's a $50 cut, that's $1,000 a year. If it's a $100 cut, that's $2,000 a year. If it's, and the average residential property at the moment is going to be minimum of $80. There's still a lot of guys that are well under that, but the average one's going to be minimum of $70 or $80 and probably more likely to be over $100 for a residential lawn. So that's upwards of $2,000 a year.
Yeah. And then when you're converting those into robotic mowers and stuff like that, then they can be taking a little bit more out of the robotic mower because they're going to see that the client's going to see the value in it. And still be making more money elsewhere. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting model. When I talked to Richard Hogan, that's the guy up in Mackay that set up a bunch of Mobots, he was talking about the customer paying him back this couple of years ago now about $80 per lawn. And so he would set up a Mobot to do their backyard, and he would come along once a fortnight and mow the roadside verge and whippersnip the yard. And so what he worked out with the customers was keep on charging them the same amount per fortnight to do the lawn, but the robot's there every day cutting the grass and keeping that area that it looks after looking pristine. And so then if he couldn't turn up because it was wet, he would charge the customer a reduced amount for what the robot was doing, less what he would do when he would turn up. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And that's a really interesting business model for people that are looking at implementing robots where they buy them themselves and set them up on customers' yards, whether it's residential properties or rural, commercial properties, whatever it might be.
Most definitely. I think that it's just getting their head around as a mowing business, getting their head around how it works for them, and a lot of them think that the robots are there to take their business away rather than work with them.
What I've told a few people is for robotic mowers, I've probably spent $25,000 on robots. Yep. And they do about a third of the mowing work for me on one commercial site.
Yep.
That's saving me a lot of labour.
Oh, definitely. You're allowed to be off doing jobs elsewhere, still making that money on top of it. So
at the end of the day, the labour saving alone is paid off in around 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah, look, we find most students when we start trying to work out costs and how soon they'll be paid off. It's generally within 12 to 18 months, depending on the size of the property and that. But 12 to 18 months, and then they're actually getting a return on their mower rather than the other way around. And when Husqvarna, we sell most of our units with a 5-year or 6,000 hour warranty as well. So you still got plenty of life left in the mower as well.
So that's a unique Husqvarna warranty, right? That's where you look after the maintenance of the mower. So you do blade changes and periodic maintenance.
No. So you buy a maintenance kit, so a whole $60 maintenance kit, and you get it serviced by a Husqvarna dealer at least once a year.
Yeah, okay. So it's the once a year service.
Once a year service, which with any of your products, you should be getting them serviced once a year, whether you've got an extended warranty or not. Whether most people do or not is a whole other thing. But you should generally be taking, whether it's a robotic mower or a push mower, or it should be getting a proper service at least once a year anyway.
Yep, that's it.
So it's a huge change between a 2-year and a 5-year warranty, and you don't get that pretty much on anything. It's hard enough to get a 2-year warranty on anything. Yeah,
that's it. So and I think a lot of robotic mowers have 1 year or 2 year warranty.
Yeah. Husqvarna standard with 2 years, but there are a few out there that are just the 1 year as well. Crest is working on a 3-year warranty.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, they need a much better app though.
Yeah, I think some of the brands that are out now, you look at them and you go, okay, compared to the brands that have been around for a while, there's certainly room for improvement on a few things like that, like better app or better functionality within the app, or a few more features like you were talking about earlier, were in terms of if it's systematic mowing, being able to change the direction manually or whether it changes it automatically. Just little things like that make a big difference.
Most definitely. And that's what I'm really noticing at the moment with this Crest mower. Yes, it's doing a great job, but to try and get it to do anything, you got to go through 20 different parts of the app to try and find it, and you're still struggling to find it, how to do it.
I've noticed other brands are similar to that. It's like, okay, I know there's a feature there, but what sub-menu have I got to look under to find it?
Yeah, exactly. The Husqvarna app is great. It's so easy to use.
Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah, so the other one there that's really interesting, I've been told that the Luba has a really good app and really good functionality.
Yeah, as I say, I only got into deep conversation with the importer here, who's based up in Queensland.
Yep.
But I never ended up getting a demo unit bought out, simply because I was just more concerned in regards to tech support and stuff like that with the unit, and getting spare parts when needed, and there's still a few different things there. So
the biggest concern I had with the Luba, and I believe this will be rectified, is the lack of connectivity. So you connect to the Wi-Fi network to set it up, and chances are that once it's out mapping, it's going to be outside of the Wi-Fi range pretty quickly, unless you start putting Wi-Fi repeaters around your yard, and it doesn't have a cell connection. So you can't connect back through the mobile network to find out what's going on. So if it's out of Wi-Fi range and something goes wrong, drives into a dam or across a road or whatever it might be, you have no idea.
Yeah, and there's a few of them coming out like that as well. So, and I get that's a question that we've had from some customers and that as well, because obviously Husqvarna has the chip in it.
Yeah,
it's 3-4G, and people go, "Oh, we're going to lose 3G," but Husqvarna already thought about all that, and it comes with a 10-year chip in there. So, if you were unlucky enough to have one that was only a 3G, and we lose 3G, if it's still within that 10 years of use, Husqvarna are replacing that. So you've got that support there with them. And as you say, once you're relying on your Wi-Fi and everything else, it's just limiting to what you can do with them. But suit the smaller property that has that space to go with it. We've got some properties that are looking at maintaining 10 acres. We've got multiple mowers out in 10 acres. Well, you're not going to have Wi-Fi boosters out on your 10-acre property everywhere, or you can, I guess. But there's those things to look into to make sure your robot suits.
Yeah, I guess that is one solution, is to have Wi-Fi repeaters across a massive property.
Then you might as well just have the Husqvarna receivers and get the wireless units put in everywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
At least they go 500 metres. I don't think the Wi-Fi boosters go quite that far.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. I've got a Wi-Fi booster at the back of my house, and that'll reach my shed, which is about 60 metres. It's reasonable signal there.
Okay.
But
good.
60 is a lot less than 500.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially when you're talking about mowing.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm sure that they'll work something out for it. And Luba have pushed really hard in the Australian market, and I think they're known pretty well, pretty quickly, and they have a lot of positives coming through. So
yeah, certainly. Like I was saying, I think some of those issues are being rectified either with a new model or an upgrade option or something along those lines. So yeah, watch this space. They're going to get more interesting and be more competitive.
Oh, most definitely. And that's with all brands. They'll have to now because there's so many changes within the industry that they have to jump on board, and that includes Husqvarna. Husqvarna need to make changes to keep up, even though they're well and truly a world leader in it.
Yeah, well, I think it's testimony to Husqvarna, the amount of changes they have made in the last 6 months to implement new models that meet those various needs and answers to other brands' options.
Yeah, and look, their advantage is because they have been around for so long. A lot of the issues that other places, other companies are having with them, Husqvarna already been there and done that. So they've been able to lead and make that change a lot easier. And they've got the manpower to be able to make the changes and not rely on group funding and whatever else a lot of them rely on to get them up and going in the first place.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, Darren, it's been great talking to you. I'd like to finish up with a couple of questions that are interesting for listeners to help them understand you and your business well. So I found you on Instagram. So if people want to find you or ask you questions, the best place to look up is on Instagram. Look up BattMow.
Yeah, BATT.
BATT. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we can only see the one T behind your head there.
I should have kept moving around for you. So yeah,
that's it.
BATT.
Yep. So Instagram's a great place to find you because that's where I found you. And what direction is your business heading at the moment? Is it just basically doing more of what you've been doing? Because we've sort of covered that already, but it's good to know.
Yeah. So as I say, we're opening a store in Somerville down here over the next couple of months, which we're really excited about. So we've actually got a base for people to be coming to and from. But we just love to get out. We love to get out and about. We love to demo products, whether that's the robots or whether that's the battery gear. So I just want to get out and see more people. I want to see more, more customers, whether that's residential or commercial.
Yeah.
The commercial side is really exciting at the moment with changes in that side of the industry. But I just love to chat to people and get them using the products more than walking in and being told that this is the right product for you. Give it a go and try it out that way.
It sounds like a lot of my listeners will potentially be wanting to contact you because you're covering more and more handheld OPE. Yeah. So there's a variety of things they might contact you about, whether it's robotic mowers or the whippersnippers, hedge trimmers, blowers, all the gear. The other thing that I find really interesting is I love talking to people about what they do outside of their business for hobbies or you spend time with your family. I could talk all day about motorbikes because I ride motorbikes for my fun, my spare time.
Well, I've got 4 kids, so they take up a lot of my time. One almost 18 and then the youngest 12 years old. Yeah. So the 12-year-old still gives me love, but the older ones don't want to know me. But we've got a racehorse that will hopefully be sold next week because I'm about done with racehorses. I've grown up with racehorses, and so love watching races and love wasting money on those.
Yep.
But I guess big thing at the moment is we've just moved into our new home that we designed and just finished building. Oh, nice. So a lot of the time is spent there, feeling like we're on a holiday, but we're not, and looking at the terrible landscaping and waiting for some motivation to get out there and do that. So
you just about need to rob 5 banks in order to build a house these days, don't you?
That's how it's ended up. So that's why two businesses will continue to run for some time yet. It was planned to have the landscaping business well and truly shut down by this stage, but we started the building process right at the start of COVID.
Oh, okay. So it's taken a little while to get to the point of moving in then.
Yeah. So we bought a knockdown rebuild that we thought we'd be in for 3 months, and 2 years later we finally got out of it. And we built a stupidly big house.
Yeah.
To try and keep the 4 kids happy, but in the end hasn't kept the bank balance happy. So we'll see how we go with it. But I work. I don't sleep very well, so I'm generally up in the office at about 4 o'clock in the morning. So I started doing some boot camp and that just to try and take myself away from work a little bit as well. But
okay.
Yeah, kids and family are my number one, and then work comes very close behind it.
Yeah, this stage in life, it's hard to find balance between what you spend your time doing and trying to keep active and fit, isn't it? It's massive.
Yeah. I have a few too many beers after each night, and so boot camps. Hopefully working on this over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I enjoy a bit of running, and at the moment, I think I go running about once every 3 to 4 weeks instead of every other day. I'm feeling it.
I can't run. my old joints don't like it. So
I said that to my son. I'm 46, and I said to him just before I turned 40, I said, I'm getting too old to run, because he was doing a bit of running at that stage. And he said, Darren Morton, he's older than you and he runs.
There's always someone that ruins it for you.
So I got out there and started running, and my son stopped running. And now I'm going, I need to keep doing it. I find running is really good when you're on the tools all the time. The whippersnipping and hedge trimming and those sort of jobs, they get your body all out of kilter, because you're a contortionist when you do those sort of jobs.
Well, that's what I find when I'm laying pavers or digging holes in someone's backyard that I can't get a machine into. And
running really forces you to get your body in alignment and start moving in a way that your body's meant to move. So it's great to sort of correct some of those issues a little bit.
Yeah, my flat at the moment probably give me black eyes. So boot camp, I know that I'm there for an hour, I'm done.
Yeah, awesome.
Work hard for that hour, and they can tell me what I need to do. I can't do the gym because I just look at everything and go, okay, it looks good. Now I've got to go and do something else. Where at least at boot camp, you're in, you're done, and you get back out. And I find first thing in the morning, it actually gives you more energy than what most people think. And by the end of the day, I'm still exhausted, but for the work day, it's as such, I feel like I've got more energy than what I would normally have.
That's awesome. Yeah. My kids, 4 kids as well, but I've got his, hers and ours. So 2 kids from her first marriage, 1 from my first marriage, and 1 together. So the 3 older ones are all adults now, and our youngest is 15.
Okay. Well, mine are 2 and 2. So I'm in my second marriage, and my wife bought 2, and I had 2 as well.
Yeah.
But we weren't silly enough to go back for a 5th to have one together. So.
Well, we had 3, and it was a little bit unkilted. So I was like, 4 will just even it out and make it so much more fun.
And is it?
Oh, look, she's great. She was the glue in the family when we were first married. It was, awesome. So,
and how much older, how much younger is she compared to the others?
So there's about 10 years age gap from oldest to youngest.
Okay.
So the funny thing is she's 15 and we have 2 grandchildren.
Oh, wow. So how old was she when she was an auntie?
So that's probably about 4 years, not quite 4 years ago, about that.
Okay. Very young. I do have a half sister that is, she's about 18 years younger than me.
Wow. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. So she was an auntie very, very early.
Yeah, I bet.
So, but no, I think 4 for us was more than enough, and it's still nice to have the 12-year-old son that wants to do things with me, and except when he wants to go and play basketball when I've had a big day at work and all I want to do is lay on the couch. But the others just lock themselves in their rooms or they're out with their friends. So.
Yeah, my son is 20 and he's like, come to the gym, Dad. And I said, Isaac, the gym and I are never going to be friends.
Tell him to come to work with you for a day. That's a gym workout. And then you can charge him.
He has worked with me a few times, so he understands that. But I tried to explain to him, I said, I do a lot of physical work for what I do. And what I do outside of my job to keep active and fit is really important. But going to the gym is just taking me away from everything else. So if I can go for a run from home, or I go for a bike ride, go for a motorbike ride, do some weights in the back room, that sort of thing works well for me. But going to the gym, no.
No. I just don't have the motivation enough. I need someone to tell me what to do when it comes to gym workouts and stuff like that. So
yeah, fair enough. Well, I'll send my son down because he'll happily tell you what to do.
No, that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, that's all good. Hey, Darren, it's been awesome talking to you. I'm looking at about an hour and a half of video I've got to edit here, and that's going to keep me busy. But really appreciate your time. It's been good to look at what your business does and look at who your customers are. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening to my podcast will be thinking a little bit harder about robotic mowers, or particularly if they're in your area, they'll be able to get in touch with you.
Yeah, no, really like that. I'm really thankful for the invite and glad that we could finally make it as well. It's been chats back and forth for a while, so it's good to finally get it done.
No, some people I get in within a couple of days of reaching out to them, and other people I got to chase them for a couple of months, but that's all good.
No, I've been freaking out about it for long enough, so it's good to get it over and done with.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.